7 days. That is all it took. 7 days for Blueface to confess to cheating on camera, to get his front door approached by a tactical unit with rifles out, to sit in his own living room while a child welfare investigator lifted his son's shirt looking for bruises, and then, in that same week, to find out on a live stream, in front of thousands of paying strangers, that one of the mothers of his children had allegedly been with his own former manager. And he laughed. That is the part nobody is prepared for. He laughed. Now, before we go one sentence further, I need you to understand something, because it changes how you watch everything that comes next. Almost none of this is a rumor somebody typed on a blog. Almost every single piece of this happened on camera, inside his own house, on his own microphone, streamed on his own channel, and monetized by his own audience. Blueface documented his own collapse, frame by frame, and then charged people admission to watch it happen. And by the time we get to the end of this, I am going to show you the one detail underneath all of it. Not the yelling, not the crying, not the raid. A money detail. A contract detail. The thing that actually explains why a grown man would voluntarily broadcast the worst week of his life instead of burying it. Because I sat with all of this footage, and I am telling you right now, this was not a man losing control. I think this was a man executing a plan. Stay with me, because the receipts on that are uglier than the raid. Let me give you the timeline first, because when you see it laid out in order in 1 week, it stops looking like drama and starts looking like a case file. Day 1. Blueface goes on a stream and admits, unprompted, that he has been cheating, and he does not admit it the way a guilty man admits something. He admits it the way a man reads off a resume. He says the quiet part loud. He says he has women he is only physical with, but there is always one girlfriend, and the girlfriend is the priority. He is not confessing. He is organizing. He is drawing an org chart on live television and putting the mothers of his children on it. Day 2. The whisper going around is that somebody made a call. Not a call to a gossip page. A call to law enforcement. A tactical unit shows up at the property while the cameras are rolling and the stream is live. Day 3. The same week, a child welfare investigator is standing in the living room asking a small boy to lift up his shirt. Day 4. Chrisean Rock is on camera crying. Not performing. Crying. Day 5. The accusations turn personal in a way that has nothing to do with any of the children, where she starts questioning his private life, and he starts firing back with clips. Day 6, he finds out about the manager. Live. On stream. With a chat full of people watching his face. Day 7, he is back on camera, laughing, taking donations, and talking about how he cannot be rejected by a woman who has 7 tattoos of him on her body. 7 days. One man. And every single one of those days generated clips, and every one of those clips generated views, and every one of those views generated money. Hold that thought, because we are coming back to it. Let me start with the confession, because the confession is the foundation of everything else, and most people skipped straight past what he actually said. When Blueface admitted the cheating, he did not use the language of a man who got caught. He used the language of a man describing a system he built and is proud of. He described a structure. There is a girlfriend, and the girlfriend has a title, and the title comes with a ranking, and the ranking means she gets prioritized. Everybody else is traffic. He said it flatly, with no shame in his voice, no pause, no hedge, on a stream, knowing the clip would travel. And then, and this is the part that gets me, he specified where it happened. He named the location. He put the incident at somebody else's house, at Scoop's place, and he said it happened with no problem and no questions asked. Now, think about what that sentence is engineered to do. He is not just confessing to being unfaithful. He is confessing in a way that is designed to humiliate a specific person publicly while making himself sound in demand. That is not a slip. A slip is when you say too much and go quiet. This man said too much and then added detail. He added a location. He added a lack of consequences. He volunteered the fact that nobody questioned him. And here is what I keep coming back to. Blueface knows the internet. He is not new. He has been in the machine long enough to know exactly how a sentence like that travels. He knows that clip runs for a week. He knows the mothers of his children are going to see it, and he knows their friends are going to send it to them with 3 laughing faces attached. He said it anyway. That is either recklessness of a kind I have genuinely never seen, or it is bait, and he is fishing with the people closest to him as the hook. I want to be fair here, and I mean actually fair, not fake fair. Blueface has never once claimed to be a faithful man. He has never sold himself as a husband figure. He has been consistent about that for years, and there is a strange, ugly honesty in it. He is not lying to anybody. What he is doing is worse than lying in some ways, because lying at least implies you think the truth would hurt somebody. He does not think that. He does not think the truth costs him anything. Which brings me to the plate. Because the plate is where this whole week turns, and if you only watch the headlines, you miss the actual mechanism. There is a moment on camera where Blueface asks Chrisean Rock to make him a plate of food. That is it. That is the whole request. Make me a plate. And the second I watched that exchange, I knew where the night was going, and I need to explain why, because on the surface it sounds like nothing. Asking somebody to make you a plate, in that specific context, on camera, after everything that had just been said publicly, is not a request for food. It is a test of rank. It is a public loyalty check performed in front of an audience. If she makes the plate, she has accepted the position he described on stream. She has accepted the org chart. And she knows it. You can hear her know it in real time. Watch her response, because her response is smarter than people gave her credit for. She does not say no. She says, "Why are you asking me that?" She goes straight to the frame instead of the request. She asks him why he is trolling her. She asks him why he is cooking with her. And then she says the line that tells you she understood exactly what was happening. She says, "Do not talk to me like I am one of these groupies." And he does not deny it. He does not soften it. He looks at her and tells her she is a groupie. On camera. In his house. With the stream running. That right there is the entire relationship compressed into 4 seconds. She is asking for a rank above the traffic. He is telling her, publicly, that there is no rank. And the audience is watching, and the chat is going crazy, and the clip is already being cut while the argument is still happening. Now here is the part that made my stomach turn a little. If you follow the timeline, that same night, after all of that, after being called a groupie on a live broadcast, after the plate, after the humiliation, the two of them reportedly ended up together anyway. So he knew exactly what he was doing. She knew exactly what he was doing. And she went along with it anyway. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that is a mystery. That is a pattern. That is what a pattern looks like from the outside when you are watching it happen live instead of hearing about it 3 years later in an interview. And then Chrisean cried. Let me be careful here, because this is the point where a lot of people online decided to be cruel. And I do not think cruelty gets us anywhere near the truth. When Chrisean broke down after that whole altercation, the read online was that she was crying over him. I do not think that is what happened. I think she was crying about herself. I think she was crying because she understood, in that moment, in front of an audience, exactly what she had agreed to be. That is a different kind of tears. That is the kind you cry when the fog clears for about 90 seconds and you see your own situation from the outside. And what did Chrisean say when she came back to the camera? She said she was just happy people were calling to check on her. Sit with that one. In the middle of a public collapse, the thing she reached for was not revenge, and it was not a diss track. It was the fact that somebody picked up the phone. That is a woman who is isolated. Whatever else you want to say about Chrisean, and there is a lot to say, that specific sentence is the sentence of somebody with very few people left. But let me get back to Blueface, because he did not stay quiet. And what he did next is where this gets genuinely strange. The accusations between them stopped being about the children and started being about him personally. Chrisean started questioning his private life directly. She started raising questions about who he talks to and who he is around, and she pointed at footage of him in conversation with a transgender woman as if that settled something. And rather than let it go, rather than take the loss and move on, Blueface answered. He answered publicly, and he answered with more clips, which is the exact worst possible strategy if your goal is to make a story die. Because here is what nobody in that situation seems to understand. Every single time Blueface responds, he extends the story by another cycle. Every clip he posts to defend himself becomes a clip somebody else monetizes. He is not winning arguments. He is feeding a machine, and the machine is not on his side. It is just hungry. And I am going to say the fair thing again, because it matters. None of that accusation was ever proven, and being in a conversation with somebody is not evidence of anything. That whole exchange was two people who know each other's soft spots reaching for the fastest available insult. It was not information. It was ammunition. And the internet treated it like a documentary. Now let me take you to the part of this story that actually deserves the word serious, Because up until now, we have been talking about adults doing damage to each other voluntarily. Let me talk about the paternity. Because this is the thread that runs underneath everything, and it is the reason I do not think this is entertainment. Blueface has said, publicly, repeatedly, on multiple platforms, that Chrisean's son is not his child. He has been consistent about it. He says it is not his baby, that she is not his baby mother, that he is not claiming the child, and he is not claiming her. He says it in that flat, unbothered voice, like he is correcting somebody's math. And then, in the same breath, he explains that when he is with a woman and her children are around, he is going to be nice to them. He talks about doing little handshakes, rubbing their heads, playing tickle monster, peekaboo. So follow the logic with me, because the logic is the problem. Blueface is saying, on camera, that he does not believe the child is his, that he will never claim the child, and that he will continue to appear in that child's life in a fatherly way anyway. On camera, where the footage will exist forever, where that child will one day be old enough to search his own name and find every one of these clips. That is the part where I have to stop pretending this is a fun story. And it gets more tangled, because a DNA test allegedly exists, and that test allegedly came back saying the child is his. Blueface's position is that the test was fake, that it was done for clicks, that it was never real. Now, I want to be precise. I have not seen paperwork proving either version, and neither have you. But here's what stands out to me. If you are a man who insists a document is fraudulent, and you have the ability to end the entire conversation permanently by producing one page, and you choose instead to keep arguing about it on streams for months, that choice tells me something. Not everything, but something. Because clarity would end the content, and ambiguity keeps it running. I want you to hold that sentence in your head for the rest of this, because it is going to apply to almost every decision Blueface makes in this story. Clarity ends the content. Ambiguity keeps it running. Meanwhile, Chrisean has been out here telling a completely different story, and honestly, her version might be the saddest part of this entire situation. Chrisean says Jonathan is present. Not on camera, not on stream, but privately. She says he shows up for his son. She says he is a present father, and that they just do not broadcast it, because she does not want the drama and the back and forth. She says, behind closed doors, he is there for the baby. And then, in the same conversation, she says something that tells you she understands exactly what she is caught inside of. She says he is running with a narrative to get her to crash out. So she gives him clout. So she looks like the old version of herself that the internet used to eat off of. She says she told him plainly, if you are going to be in your son's life, it cannot be content. And she says he agreed. And then she admits she can tell he does not actually agree, because look where we are, back at square one again. That is the most self-aware thing anybody in this story has said, and she said it while sitting inside the exact trap she just described. Think about the position she is in. She has to defend a man who publicly denies her child in order to protect her child's sense of having a father. She has to say, he is a good dad, in the same week that he says on a stream, that is not my baby. She is doing damage control for a man who is the source of the damage. And she is doing it in public, because public is the only place either of them lives anymore. Now I need to address the hardest allegation attached to Chrisean, and I am going to handle it carefully, because the internet has not been careful with it at all. There is a widespread accusation online that she used substances while pregnant, and people have connected that accusation to her son's health and development. I want to be extremely clear about what is actually known and what is being assumed. What people saw with their own eyes were streams. That part is not speculation, because it was broadcast. What people are doing beyond that is drawing a straight medical line from what they saw to a child's condition, and that line is not something any of us can draw. That is a conclusion that requires doctors, not comment sections. But I am also not going to insult your intelligence by pretending that nobody is upset for a reason. A whole lot of people watched a pregnancy happen on a live stream and felt sick about what they were seeing, and that reaction is not manufactured outrage. That is people watching a vulnerable situation get broadcast for entertainment and feeling like something was very wrong. And here is where I will say the thing that is going to make some people uncomfortable. The child in this story has not chosen any of it. Not the streams, not the arguments, not the paternity fight, not the raid, not the investigation. He is the only person in this entire situation with clean hands, and he is the one whose life is being permanently documented by the two people who are supposed to be protecting him. Let me pull back for a second and talk about how strange the arrangement around Blueface has become, because there is a moment that explains the whole ecosystem better than any argument. Somebody asked him, on camera, whether the cheating was worth it. And his answer was no. He said it was not worth it. But then he added something. He looked at whoever he was talking to and said, "They are watching you. All of them. Very closely. They want your spot." That is a man describing a competition he set up. He created a scarcity structure between the mothers of his children. There is one spot. The spot has value. The spot can be lost. And everybody who does not have the spot is watching whoever does. That is not a relationship dynamic. That is a tournament bracket, and he is the prize, and he told them so out loud. And then there is the woman in that conversation who is not even upset about it. She asks about the cheating like she is asking about the weather. She is not hurt. She is informed. She has accepted the terms. So which is it? Either the whole arrangement is a performance and the relationships are stage props for the stream, or she genuinely does not care because the money arrives either way. I have gone back and forth on this, and I will tell you honestly, I think the answer is both, and I think both is worse than either. Which brings us to the Blueface tattoos, and the tattoos are a physical record of everything I have just described. Chrisean has multiple tattoos of Blueface on her body. He has said, plainly, that he has 0 tattoos of her. He uses that asymmetry as a debate weapon. He literally argues that he cannot possibly have been rejected by a woman who has 7 tattoos of him on her skin, and he says it like it is a legal defense. He is using her permanent devotion as evidence of his own value. And now Chrisean is having them removed. She talks about covering the tattoo up when she is on stage because it is distracting, and sometimes leaving it visible because she is feeling herself that day, and then she says that after all the treatments, it will be gone and the nightmare will be over. The nightmare will be over. Chrisean used the word nightmare. About her own body. About a decision she made for a man who was, at that exact moment, telling audiences that her child is not his. And then she says she is going to put new tattoos in that same spot when the removal is complete. New sons. Something else. Something hers. I want to be honest with you, that whole passage did something to me. Because that is a woman conducting a public exorcism on her own skin, one laser session at a time, while still being financially and emotionally tied to the man she is erasing. Now let me get to the day that turned this from a mess into a matter, because everything I have described so far is adults hurting each other. This next part involves the state. Because on the same stretch of days that all of this was going on, a tactical unit showed up at the house. The way this typically works is grim, and it is common in the streaming world. Somebody makes a false emergency call. They report that a shooting happened or that somebody is in danger, and they give an address. Law enforcement is obligated to respond as though it is real, because if they treat it as fake and it turns out to be real, somebody dies. So the response is heavy. Rifles out, perimeter set, people ordered out of the house one at a time. And what does it look like on the stream? It looks like chaos with the volume turned up. It looks like a cat running through the shot. It looks like a kid at the window announcing that the police are still outside. And it looks like Blueface, standing there, saying my feet are hot. His feet were hot. Officers were outside his home responding to a report of a shooting, and the thing he said out loud was that his feet were hot. Then he gives them his real name. My name is Jonathan. Can you tell me what this is about? And then he answers it himself. They swatted us. And he says it with the tone of a man reporting a delivery delay. The officers ask how many people are inside. He says, just a kid. Then the count gets adjusted. 2 guys and a girl. 4. Somebody asks who has the camera. That is my camera guy, he says. Mel. And through the entire thing, he is cooperative. He is polite. He is telling everybody inside to come out because it is just protocol. Protocol. And this is what stopped me cold when I watched it back. Nobody in that house was frightened. Nobody. A child in the middle of it is being told, you will be okay. I promise, you will be okay. And even that reassurance sounds routine. There is a kid asking about drones. There is somebody worrying about how their hair looks on camera during a police response. That is not shock. That is not adrenaline. That is a household that has fully absorbed extreme events into ordinary life. You do not get that calm from one incident. You get that calm from repetition. And they did not stop at the call to law enforcement. Whoever set this in motion followed through, because Child Protective Services came too. So now there is an investigator inside the home, and she has to do her job, which means she has to look at the children. And I need you to hear how this went, because the tone of it is the most disturbing part of this entire story, and it has nothing to do with anybody yelling. The investigator asks the little boy whether he has any bruises on his body. She asks it gently. She uses baby language, the softest possible version of a horrifying question, asking about boo-boos and owies. She asks to see his stomach. She asks him to show his six-pack. She asks to see his back. She asks him what he likes to eat at home. And he tells her, hamburger, hot dog, pizza. He is laughing. Somebody mentions that he just finished some popcorn. That is a child being screened for signs of abuse while giggling about hot dogs, and the whole thing is happening on a broadcast. And Blueface, through all of this, is asking whether there is any issue with his phone. Somebody is joking about being fully alive with no injuries. Somebody is commenting on how they look. Nobody is rattled. DJ Academics came out and said, essentially, thank God somebody called, because somebody needed to check on that house. And I want to be very precise about my own position here, because this is where people get sloppy. Filing a false emergency report is dangerous, and people have died from it. So I am not going to applaud the method. But I understand the sentiment completely, and I think most reasonable people do. When a household is that chaotic and that publicly documented, and multiple small children are inside it, and the adults treat an armed response as a bit for the stream, somebody with authority looking around is not the villain of the story. The uncomfortable question, the one I actually want your answer to, is this. How did it get to the point where a false emergency call was the mechanism that finally got a professional through that door? Because that is what happened. Not a report from a concerned relative. Not an intervention from the industry. A prank. A prank is what finally put a caseworker in that living room. Let me show you the other clip from that same period, the one about the pregnancy, because this is where the arrangement stops being weird and starts being something else. There is a conversation where Blueface is running through a list with the mother of his newest child, and she is confirming items back to him like a report card. No partying. Confirmed. No being with other men. Confirmed. No drugs. Confirmed. No drinking. Confirmed. Healthy. Confirmed. In the house. Confirmed. Just like a pregnant woman is supposed to be, she says. Waiting on her man. And Blueface accepts the report and then delivers the closing line, which is that he would let her go do whatever she wants. And if the baby comes out damaged, that is on her. His words, roughly. All he can do is give his best advice, and if she does not want to take it, that is her problem. Now, I want to separate two things, because they are getting mashed together online. Encouraging a pregnant woman not to drink or use substances is, on its face, correct advice. That is not the issue. The issue is the structure it is delivered inside. She is not being supported. She is being audited, on camera, for an audience. And she is performing compliance, out loud, in a tone that sounds like a child reciting to a parent, so that thousands of strangers can watch her prove she followed the rules. And notice which rules are on the list. No other men. So the arrangement is explicit. She is monitored for exclusivity while he has stated publicly, with no hedging, that exclusivity does not apply to him. There is one rule book and it has one name on the cover. And the reason it works, the reason he can hold that position, is leverage. He has made it clear that the position is replaceable. There is another woman waiting. There is always another woman waiting. He has said as much, and the tournament bracket I mentioned earlier is exactly what makes the rules enforceable. She is not agreeing because it is fair. She is agreeing because there is a line behind her. Now let me give you the moment I genuinely could not get out of my head, and it is not the raid, and it is not the caseworker. It is the laugh. Earlier in that same stretch, one of the mothers of his children admitted publicly that she had been with Blueface, former manager and friend, and she said she had no regrets about it. And this did not come out through a blog. It did not come out through a leak. Blueface found out about it live, while streaming, in front of a chat. And what did he do? He laughed. He said he likes being in charge. He started addressing the manager by name on the stream. He said, "Send me a video." He said, "You can have her." He started running through his favorite people list, throwing names in, keeping the tone light. He kept saying he wished he could show everybody a video. He said he would not put the customer on blast, because that is the next man's business. He told the man to stay dangerous. He said, top tier to the next one. And then, while all of this was happening, the donations came in. Somebody gifted subscriptions. 35. Then 15 more. Then 50 more. He is on camera saying, "Give me 5,000 more." So let me describe what that scene actually was. A man learned that his friend and former manager had been with the mother of his child in front of a live audience, and he converted that information into revenue in real time. In the same minute, the betrayal arrived and he processed it at the register. And the audience did not buy the laugh. People said immediately that they know a fake laugh when they hear one. And I agree with them, but I want to point out the more interesting thing. Even if the laugh was fake, he still chose it. Under maximum public pressure, with an audience watching, his instinct was not to go quiet, and it was not to go off. It was to entertain. That is a reflex that has been trained into him. That is a man whose pain response has been professionalized. Now, do I think it hurt him? Yes. I think it hurt him a lot, and I think that is exactly why the reaction was so loud. Quiet is what real indifference sounds like. That was not quiet. That was a man building a wall out of noise while the cameras rolled. And here is where the double standard becomes impossible to ignore, and I am going to say it plainly. Blueface has stated openly that he will continue being unfaithful. That is his declared position. But when the arrangement runs the other direction, even once, the entire internet gets a performance. He can hold the rulebook. He cannot be held to it. And he has enough leverage that he never has to be, because there is always somebody willing to take the open spot. Some of the commentary online got ugly about her, and I want to reject the framing entirely, because there is a much more interesting question sitting right there. If a man tells you, on camera, that he sees a woman as disposable, and he has children with her, and he continues building his entire public brand on her presence in his life, then who exactly is being exposed by that arrangement? Because she is not the one who designed it. All right, now let me give you the part one promised you at the very top. The money. Because everything I have described, all 7 days of it, every argument, every raid, every confession, every crying clip, sits on top of one structural fact that almost nobody in the comments is talking about. Blueface does not really make music anymore. He has essentially walked away from it. And the explanation that keeps circulating, and it is the one that makes the most sense to me, is a contract. The reporting and the chatter both point to the kind of arrangement where a very large share of what an artist generates goes upstream to the people who signed him. If that is the situation, then every song he releases is largely somebody else's income. And if releasing music mostly enriches other people, then a rational man stops releasing music. So what does he have left? He has himself. He has his house. He has his relationships. He has his children. He has his chaos. And unlike a record, none of that gets taken off the top. DDG is one of the people who reportedly told him the truth about streaming. The money is real. You just have to stay in the chair long enough, and you have to keep producing clips that travel. That is the actual job. Not talent. Not craft. Clip velocity. And I want you to notice how completely that reframes the last 7 days. Because clip velocity is not a talent. Clip velocity is a supply problem. You have to produce conflict on a schedule, and conflict on a schedule requires people who will show up and argue with you on camera whenever the numbers dip. Most streamers do not have that. They have to manufacture it with stunts. Blueface does not have to manufacture anything, because Blueface built a household that generates it for free. And now look at Blueface inventory through that lens. He has an extraordinarily unusual arrangement with multiple mothers of his children, all of whom are willing to appear on camera, all of whom generate reaction, all of whom argue with each other and with him, all in public. That is not a personal life. In the streaming economy, that is a content pipeline with no licensing fees, no clearance issues, and no royalty split. Which means every single thing we have discussed becomes financially rational the second you accept that framing. Why admit to cheating on camera? Clips. Why deny the paternity but stay in the child's life? Because both positions generate conversation, and ambiguity generates more than clarity. Why ask for the plate? Because a confrontation is worth more than dinner. Why respond to every accusation? Because a response extends the cycle. Why laugh when the manager news drops? Because the alternative is dead air, and dead air pays nothing. I sat with that for a while, and here is my conclusion. And I want to be careful because I am not accusing anybody of a crime. I do not think Blueface is out of control. I think he found the one asset in his life that nobody can take a percentage of, and the asset is his family. The relationships are the product. The arguments are the release schedule. The children are, at minimum, set dressing in a business he runs. And that is a sentence I hate writing, but I do not know how else to read a man who denies a child's paternity on a stream and then plays peekaboo with him on a stream in the same week. So now let me close the loops I opened, and then I want to hear from you, because this one genuinely needs a jury. The confession was not a confession. It was a job posting with a ranking system attached. The plate was not about food. It was a public loyalty test, and she failed it on purpose and then went along with it anyway, which is the most human and most heartbreaking detail in the whole story. The tears were not about him. They were about her, and about a moment of clarity that arrived on camera, which is the worst possible place to have one. The raid was not the crisis. The calm during the raid was the crisis, because that calm is only possible if extreme events have become normal in that house. The caseworker was not the intrusion. The caseworker was the first professional to walk through that door, and it took a prank call to make it happen. The laugh was not indifference. It was the sound of a man whose pain has been monetized so thoroughly that he no longer has a private setting. And the tattoos are the only honest document in this entire story, because they are the only thing in it that somebody is actively trying to remove. There is one loop I am deliberately leaving open, and it is the biggest one. That DNA paperwork. One page ends the entire argument permanently. One page. And as long as it stays unseen, this story keeps generating episodes, and everybody keeps getting paid, and one small boy keeps growing up inside a question mark that adults are choosing not to answer. So I want your verdict, and I want you to be specific, because there are 4 separate arguments happening in the comments right now, and people keep answering the wrong one. First, was calling Child Protective Services the right move? Not the false emergency call. That part is indefensible and dangerous. I mean the welfare check. Was somebody looking in on those children a violation, or was it overdue? Second, Chrisean Rock. Victim, participant, or both? Because I have watched hours of this, and I genuinely go back and forth, and the tattoo removal complicates every easy answer. Third, who is lying about the paternity? He says the test is fake. The test allegedly says otherwise. Only one of those parties can produce paperwork and end it, and that party has not. Fourth, and this is the one I actually want to argue about. Is any of this real? Because if these relationships are performances built for the stream, then we are watching a scripted production with real children in the cast. And if they are genuine, then it is worse, because then nobody is acting. Tell me where you land. Tell me which one of these people you think has the most to lose. And tell me honestly whether you are going to keep watching, because I already know the answer, and so does he. That is the whole business model. He is not counting on your approval. He is counting on your attention, and so far, every single one of us is paid up. Now, I have been holding one more thread back, because it deserves its own conversation, and it involves the other mother, the one everybody keeps skipping. Jaidyn Alexis has been remarkably quiet through this entire 7-day stretch, and in a story where everybody talks constantly, silence is the loudest thing in the room. There is a version of this where she is the only person in the building who understood the assignment from day one, and I have pulled some things together on that. I will get into it next, so stay right here, because once you see how her position was built, the whole structure of this thing looks completely different, and you will not be able to unsee it.